Okay, in this video lesson, we're going to look at solving quadratic equations by graphing. Let's remember that the quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c, and as equation, it's equal to 0. Now, as long as we have an equation that's set equal to 0 in this form, ax squared plus bx plus c, we can go ahead and graph it to determine the solutions. Let's take a look. The first thing, though, that you must do is set the equations equal to 0. So here's an equation that's a given. 2x squared minus 3x equals 35. Okay, I really can't graph this until this equation says equals 0. Or we have all three of these terms on the same side of the equation. So think of it like this. If I were to try to set this equal to 0 and have a 35, I would have to subtract 35 from the right side. Subtract 35. All right, well, if you're subtracting 35 from the right side, you also have to subtract 35 from the right side. Of course, it cancels over here. That's where we get our 0. But on this side, you're not really subtracting 35 from either one of these terms because these are not constants, okay? So that just means the negative 35 is going to stay over here. So the shortcut way of thinking about it is just moving this 35 over to the other side, and it becomes the opposite. You can do that with any term. If it's positive over here and you move it to the other side, it becomes negative. If it was negative and you move it over, it becomes positive. So let's go ahead and let me show you what that looks like just by simply taking the 35 and moving it over. All right, so now our equation would say 2x squared minus 3x equals, minus 35 equals 0. Now the equation says exactly the same thing. We just moved this positive 35 to the other side and made it a negative 35. All right, so when it is in this format, we have our ax squared plus bx plus c, and I'm going to show you how to graph that to find the solutions. Okay, so here's our equation that we just looked at, okay? And I'm simply going to pull up my graphing calculator. Of course, in class, we have our Inspires. At home, you can Google the Desmos graphing calculator. It's the star version, okay? And then I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to enter the equation. And the equation is 2x squared. So 2x squared minus 3x minus 35. And there you can see that it is graphed for you. And the solutions are here where the graph crosses the x-axis, okay? Now this one you see is actually in the middle of -3 and -4, but let me go ahead and point those out. If you highlight it, it'll tell you. So there's one of the solutions, -3.5. And then the other solution is 5, right there. You see, we do have two solutions because this graph crosses the x-axis at two locations. This happens often when you have a quadratic because you have the 2x squared, the degree 2. So you end up with these two answers, all right? Let's take a look at another example. Okay, so in this equation, we have 8x squared equals 2x plus 3. Now, I need to get all my terms together on the same side of the equal sign, or another way of saying that is to set this equation equal to 0. Now, you can move this term over or you can move these two terms over. It doesn't matter how which way you choose to do it. I'm going to leave the 8x squared on the left side, and then I'm going to move my 2x over, and it's going to become a minus 2x. Then I'm going to take the plus 3 and move it over, and it's going to become a minus 3. And now my equation is set equal to 0. And at this point, I'm going to be able to just pull up the Desmos star version graphing calculator and graph it. All right, so again, in here, I'm simply going to put this equation exactly as I see it. We don't put the equals 0. We just put the, it's kind of like saying y equals, and then this is all we put. Or on the graphing calculator, say f of x equals, or the one we use in class, f of x equals, and then we enter this part of the equation. So let me go ahead and do that in here. So we have 8 x squared minus 2x, and then minus 3. And you see it is graphed for us, and you can find the solutions here where it crosses the x-axis. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on that. It doesn't look like I can necessarily. It covers up my equation. But what we can do is we can just press on this point here, and it tells us that one of the solutions is negative 0.5. Now, you will probably see that oftentimes as a fraction, negative 1/2. That's what would probably show up most likely on the calculator. And then the other one, if we press on that one, it will tell us that it is 0.75. Now, the decimal is fine, but that's also another one where you would probably see it written as a fraction of 3/4. And this, again, is what the calculator would show you on the answer as well. But that is the two solutions, and that's how you find solutions by graphing.